grandmother said a long time ago, an idle mind is a devil's playground. You need to have a goal, you need to have a purpose, and you need to have a mission.
One of my buddies said, hey, let's go over and check it out. And really it was just 3 guys at that point, kind of getting together, flying formation.
Having a little fun, going around, see what we could do.
And then started getting a couple events to go fly for.
The very first flight in the real Bandit flight team was the Vince Gill concert at Pinehurst right over here.
You have to get used to flying close to another airplane.
And then just putting your airplane where it's supposed to be.
When you're up there flying, you're working.
It's great to be a pilot, but without the grounds crew and the support staff, this show doesn't get off the ground.
Coming up on 45, Mark 45.
And it's more than these guys just flying over. These guys have been giving back, doing the mission.
This is a lot of fun, but we call it serious fun. We're real serious about it.
That total confidence and brotherhood that you develop with just that ultimate trust, you're trusting those guys with your life.
Bandit Flight Team is the most active flight team in the country. Nobody comes close to doing what we do, 50 events a year. That's a lot. And they don't get paid for their time. So that's a huge dedication on their part. But we have ground coordinators, we have the pilots. These are great people, really dedicated. If we didn't have them, the Bandits just would not exist.
Bob Engel.
I'm Flash Basted.
Stephen Graham. Hal Bowman.
So I'm Andy Stanowski.
I am Wanda Jackson.
David Slawbaugh.
My name is Vince Trier.
My name is Abigail Engel.
I'm Cecil Boyd.
My name is Greg Voga.
My name is Haroon Azizi.
Jim Kilpatrick. We actually got together, started flying formation in 2009. Our first big formal event flying in formation was 2011. When we came back from Vietnam and landed, and I had done, like I said, 250 missions, and I had as many awards as anybody else, I guess. I had 13 air medals. The Distinguished Flying Cross is the 4th highest in the country, and I had 2 of those. And when I came back to the United States and we landed, we were advised to take our uniform off. Do not travel in uniform. Because a lot of people landed Travis Air Force Base and they had to go through San Francisco. That was terrible. That affected me for a long time. Those Distinguished Flying Crosses that I had, which I was pretty proud of, but with the reception I got back in the States, made me very leery of even bringing them out. And I'll be frank with you, those awards stayed in a cardboard box in my attic for 25 years. I couldn't bring them out. And that's hard, because I was quite proud of them.
I think that spending a year in Vietnam probably changes. I mean, I was just an 18-year-old kid, so I can't tell you how I feel now versus how I felt then, but, and I was awarded the Bronze Star. And I put all of my stuff, including that, in a box, and I stuck it in the attic, and I didn't take it out for a long, long time.
Finally, my wife said, no, let's take them out. Let's show them. So we did, we mounted them, and we put them on the wall. Now, I think our country understands that. You have to separate the warrior from the war. The warrior's doing the same thing every war. He doesn't make the policy decisions. He's doing what his country asked for him to do. And I certainly don't think I was a hero, and I can speak for my squadron mates, they felt the same. We just did what the country asked us to do. But that reception, and I think the country understands it now, and I think we're treating our military men much, much better. So you can see that what drives me to have the Bandit flight team flying for the flag, and salute our military.
By flying over the national anthem, we're paying our respects to all the people that we've known before, all the ones that didn't come home, all of our buddies, you know, and it's always the flag. You know, for me today, in this airplane, I've always got a flag on.
Well, I went to a reunion of some of my mates from Vietnam, and one guy had this Russian yak, which I said, what in the world is a Russian yak? He said, well, it's a Russian trainer.
And this is the Yak-52 Russian trainer. It's a 1986 plane. Soviet Union was in operation. They built the Yak with a 5-year plan. So they would put out an order. The planes were built in a plant in Romania.
Because most people say, well, how in the hell can you fly a Russian airplane right over top of a stadium here flying for the flag? And we say, well, we won. It's our airplane, we took it.
So I buy a Russian yak, and I come here to the local airport, and I find that there's 3 others based here.
There was at least one other guy here, and then there became 2, and then there became 3, and so forth. Other pilots who had formation-capable airplanes, and we would go out and fly.
Now, they were not military. They were trying to learn how to fly formation. I had a military background, so I started working with them, just flying formation, having a little fun, going around, see what we could do.
And really it was just 3 guys at that point, kind of getting together, flying formation. And so we all got together and started flying larger formations, and then started getting a couple events to go fly for.
The very first flight in the real Bandit flight team was the Vince Gill concert at Pinehurst right over here.
So we did a few things like that, and then we got more formal, more intense, and then we started developing strict procedures. Everybody got formation, we call cards, but a license to fly formation, and it just developed, and we did an operations manual and got much more serious. And as we developed, a good friend at NC State got me in contact with NC State, and we did a flyover for them, and that was kind of, we got rolling from there. Right, we want to have a team, so we started putting guys together, deciding what our name, who we are, that type of stuff. So we got together. One of our guys came up with the name Bandits. The reason we have the name Bandits is from World War II. All the movies, they identify unidentified aircraft are bandits. Bandits at 12 o'clock high. We've probably heard that in the movies. So we developed that name because that's us. We're out there flying, you see 6 airplanes, you say bandits. Well, sure enough, you're right, it's the Bandits. So that's how we came up with the name, and then one of the guys got the logo. We did the red, white, and blue because obviously we're saluting our military, and that's how that got formalized.
You have to get used to flying close to another airplane, which is not normal.
Our reflexes are get away, pull back, don't get too close to another airplane.
It's pretty challenging at first, but once you get used to it, it becomes a real thrill.
When you learn how to fly formation, they of course you have some ground school about how to do it. Then you go out and the instructor shows you how to do it and then lets you do it. It's really not that hard. It's a matter of seeing what the references are for the other airplane and then just putting your airplane where it's supposed to be. So if you can see on the airplane here, we have some various things on the airplane that we can use to make a line of position. And we standardize that on the Bandit team. We have our little logo here on the front, and we use that with the flap hinge here in the middle that defines a line. So we call that the bearing line. And there are other references on the RV-8 that we use, like the outer flap hinge on the prop spinner is the same bearing line. And then on the back, on the tail, we have some references. So you have 2 lines And where those two lines intersect, that's the proper position to be in. Up and down wise, you want to split the wing so you see the same amount of the top as the bottom of the wing. And that's the correct up and down position. And that puts you about 38 feet from fuselage to fuselage, and it gives you about 5 feet or so of wingtip clearance spacing. But the other airplane's behind you, so it's not like the wingtips are right next to each other. It's offset so that we're behind each other. And that is the correct position to be in when we're in what we call fingertip. There are other positions we fly, so we fly what we call a route or en route position, and that is spaced out 2 to 4 ship widths. So that's a little bit more relaxed. So when you're just flying someplace and we need to not have to concentrate the whole time, we can fly out in that little bit more relaxed position. Biggest issue that young pilots have when they're first starting to fly formation is they're just overcorrecting. They're grabbing onto the stick and they're moving the airplane and it's dancing all over the place because they're like, oh, a little too high, oh, a little too low, oh, a little too high. And you have to just calm down, light touch on the stick, and just keep moving the flight controls around. So when you think about, oh, I'm a little bit low and I need to move up, and you start moving up, oh, I'm gonna get a little too high, you're always a little bit behind movement where you're supposed to be. But if you just keep stirring the controls around a little bit, moving the throttle, moving the controls, and not think about moving them, just stirring them, then you see that you're a little bit low and you just think, I need to move up, and you just move up without even thinking about moving the controls. It's like driving a car. So when you first started driving, you're like, oh, I gotta turn, and you thought about turning a little bit, moving the wheel, and now you're like, you just drive, right? So it's kind of the same thing. When you teach somebody how to fly, you show them the techniques, and after they've learned, after a while, you're not even thinking about it. I never think about what I do moving the flight controls anymore. It's just, I want to move the airplane someplace, and it goes there.
I think military organizations are one of the highest standard organizations there are around. A lot of people think, hey, that guy must be having fun, but really and truly, when you're up there flying, you're working. And the same thing goes on here.
And so you're constantly looking at the cues that we have on the airplane to get into position. And you may be out an inch, you may be out a foot, you may be out 3 feet, but you're constantly fighting to get back in that perfect position. And so that's really the focus of the entire flight if you're one of the wingmen.
It's all of this depth perception and rate of speed, the rate of closure on the other airplane.
I think some of the difficulties are you are focused on one position on another airplane, and outside your peripheral you may feel one thing, but you got to stay with your sight line on that one position of the airplane to maintain integrity in the formation. That becomes somewhat challenging at first, but once you get over that peripheral telling you to do something else other than what that standard point on the aircraft's telling you to do, it becomes a lot easier.
You'll hear this from all of the bandits. The only thing you look at is the plane you're flying off of. You don't know where you are. Theoretically, you don't know if you're upside down or in a 90-degree bank. You're just looking at the airplane and maintaining your position on the one airplane.
Number 4 or number 2 or number 3, those are a little more relaxing positions. All you have to do is follow the guy in front of you. When you're out on the wingtips, number 5 or number 6, usually those guys have got responsibilities with comms or with chase, and it's also a more challenging position to fly in the formation. So we're typically in a delta formation, and the further away you are from lead, if you can imagine, you have lead, and then you have either 2 or 3, in this case 3, and then out on the wing you have a little bit more. So lead will move, and then that movement is a little bit amplified by number 3, and then this guy's chasing, and so it ends up being a whip. And so you really have to work hard to dampen out some of that movement when the formation turns. It's all about turn radiuses. When the planes are turning, you have basically a fixed point that they're turning around, an imaginary point in space. The further away from that point, you're going to actually have a larger turn radius. And so if you're at a larger turn radius, you're going a further distance and you have to add power to keep up. Your speed has to be faster. And conversely, if you're on the inside of the turn, you have to slow down as the formation is turned. So it's really important for lead to keep all of that in mind. If he turns too sharp, then the guys may not be able to keep up. Either the guy on the outside may have not enough power to keep up, or the guy on the inside will be at flight idle and still moving forward. And so lead has a big responsibility to keep the flight safe.
Yeah, one of the unusual things about our team, most of these kind of formation flight teams, it's all the same airplane. So we have dissimilar airplanes. And so therefore, not only the 2 yaks in the flight, but the RVs have to adjust a little bit to deal with us. And so, for example, flight lead would probably go a little faster in times, but they purposely go a little slower just so the yaks can keep up.
So to get one of your formation cards, you have to study the manuals, you have to learn all of the maneuvers and the station keeping and everything that goes along with the formation flying. Then you need to fly with other experienced people. You have to get a check pilot to actually check you off and approve you for the card.
And those guys are really brave, you know, sitting in a back seat of an airplane that's got a rookie formation pilot in it and coming in to rejoin, and there it is.
And so once they give you your check ride, it's just like any other flying, everything requires a check ride. Formation's no different.
Man, it's just total trust. You know, when you're flying that close to everybody, you have to know that they're gonna be where they're supposed to be. When you're flying 2 or 3, you got planes all around you. There's only 1 or 2 ways out of the formation, and you can't see everybody else except the plane that you're looking at. So that total confidence and brotherhood that you develop with just that ultimate trust, you're trusting those guys with your life.
So the flight lead is key position because the flight lead is responsible for everything that goes on in the flight. As we talked about before, everybody else is flying on these references and they're flying in position. They're looking at you. They're not looking where we're going. They're not looking at stuff that's out there for other airplanes, whatnot. The flight lead's doing all that for the entire flight. So it's a very, very responsible position.
The flight lead starts early. When we get the tasking, a lot of times, Jim, the chief, will give us the tasking and we'll go to Google Earth and we'll plan it up. We'll actually get coordinates. We'll look at the venue, get the coordinate, the run in line with the venue, making sure that our coordinates match up and that we get all the coordinates loaded up in the aircraft.
Then you have to look at your flight and see what conflict you have with air traffic control. At NC State game, we're in the airport traffic area. We have to get clearance from them to get in their area to fly over NC State. So we have to coordinate that. So that's one of the big things we have to do. And then once you get the planning, you get the times down, and then we have a very detailed briefing card that we send to all our flight members.
So we have a checklist, and we print it out on what we call a lineup card. So one side of the lineup card has all of the who's flying, in which position. It has the frequencies of the various places we have to communicate with. It has the mission sequence, the pictures of the formations we're going to fly, all the way from beginning to end. On the other side, it has the checklist. So the checklist, we start with a time hack so everybody's on the same time, and we go through a lot of standard stuff, like how we're going to deal with airplanes, you know, about getting pre-flight done, how we're going to taxi and all that kind of stuff. That's all pretty standard, just basic stuff we do every flight. And then we have a section about emergencies. Now that's stuff we're not going to do on every flight. We hope we never have to do it, but we always have to cover it so that if something were to happen in flight, then it would be fresh in your mind what you need to do. Like, where are the airfields that we can go to when we're in our, during our mission time frame? And if something happens to an airplane, how are we going to handle it? So we have all that section. And then we have the meat of the mission section, which is to say, what are we doing today, and how are we going to conduct that, and what are we going to do, and how are we going to accomplish it?
And then the other thing we always have to do, if it's a big event, over 30,000 people, which would be the football games in NASCAR, they make it temporary flight restriction. Aircraft cannot fly over that event without authorization. So we have to go to the TSA, make an application. I have to show them every pilot, where they were born, their social security number, an aircraft, where it's registered, a lot of data. It has to go to them. They come out and give us an approval to go into that area.
So it starts usually a couple of weeks out, and then the week of we have to fill out a lineup card to make sure we got the players in the right spots, the coordinates are on the card, and then the briefing is on the card as well. And then the day of, we're usually making the weather call with the team chief, and then we get together and we brief it up. We tell everybody what they're going to do precisely in the formation.
Got me in the lead by myself today. We've got Vince, number 2, making everybody look good, being in position. Flash, you're going to match him. Jim, we got you number 4 on the right side with Dan. Andy, you're number 5 on the left side, back in the Vic, with the backup lead in the comms. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm not exactly sure. I know they're going to be on this side of the runway. We'll come back perpendicular this way. Circle first time through 04, keep it going. Second time 040, leave fairly tight. Make sure everybody's exiting the circle, and I'm going to go straight down the runway on 2-2 this time. Offset just slightly over the people. Any questions with them?
And then the execution part of it is the difficult part. We get up there, we get into a holding pattern, we've got a route of flight, we know our timing, we're working ground speed versus winds and all that other stuff to be on time, and then you've got to get the formation in the right formation, 30 seconds prior, lined up on the venue, smoke on. If you've got any pyro or colored smoke, it comes next. And then if we're doing a bomb burst in a circle, you're organizing all of that and adjusting that, and then leaving the venue from the circle and getting everybody joined back up and getting them home safely.
The noise. Let's hear it for the Bandit Flight Team from Raleigh, North Carolina.
I'm sure I sounded calm on the radio. I was probably fooling everybody.
Their planes look cool, and I just wanted to know more about them.
It's this formation team. They fly over NC State, and I think that they would be great for the opening of the Lyman Rodeo.
Plus, who doesn't love formation?
It's great to be a pilot, but without the grounds crew and the support staff, this show doesn't get off the ground.
Mark, 3 minutes to flyover.
Copy, 3 minutes.
The Bandits learned early on that the ground controller was essential and that we wouldn't do anything without a ground controller to have that interface with the venue.
So those guys are just critical to the success of our flyover. We're trying to hit the mission within 4 seconds, couldn't do it without them.
The national anthem, we want to be right over the field when they say home of the brave. We give ourselves 4 seconds. That's our window. That's the goal line to midfield. And we hit it about every time. That's how sophisticated it is.
Yeah, I went to NC State, so my first event was actually supposed to be a football game, but then the FAA shut down all the flyovers at the time, actually on the way to the event. And so about a year later, ended up at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It got rained out on Saturday. They pushed the event to Sunday. So the other coordinator had to leave. So I was thrown into it automatically. And that ended up being my first event coordinating. I was extremely nervous because I had only shadowed a couple of times. So doing it at a NASCAR event, televised, in front of tens of thousands of people. I'm sure I sounded calm on the radio. I was probably fooling everybody. But it went over perfectly. Afterwards, I was like, this is nothing. And been history ever since.
We were at a fly-in in Beaufort, and I saw them taxiing together, and I knew that they were going to be flying formation, and I had not seen that before. So the planes looked cool, and I just wanted to know more about them.
Well, my dad has been part of the team for about 4 or 5 years now, and I decided to take up flying about 2018. So then I was like, why not?
Sometimes I plan an event, sometimes Stephen plans an event.
Yeah, once I know about where the venue's at, time of day, I kind of actually go on Google Earth and look at the event because I need to figure out where do I want to be positioned to get the best radio signal, where the performances are going to be at. Just try to figure out where to position myself physically. Then start working on the timing, make sure I know how long the anthem's going to be, and start building up my timesheet.
We take an active role in dealing with people on the ground at the event to actually come together with the schedule. From that point, obviously we need to know the venue, we need to know the direction of the flyover, what looks the best, and we need to know if there's live music or if it's recorded. We need to know when the music starts. It's, always starts with the national anthem, so if it's a live singer or if it's recorded, it makes a big difference in timing. So we ask, when is it starting? How long is it? And that tells us our first target time. And there's always a second piece of music. Sometimes they speak between the first and the second pass. So we have to coordinate how much time does the team need to turn around, for example, because 6 planes flying in formation, it takes 3 minutes and 30 seconds for them just to turn around and get back to the same point. If they're coming back from a different direction, that's a factor.
For my timesheet, we got obviously a countdown starting at about an hour out for each pass. We also have a countdown for the anthem, so we know roughly how long the anthem should be, when it should be starting, when it should be ending. Also, we have a countdown for the second pass if there's one. And of course, that can be very fluid. And also throw in there radio frequencies just in case we ever have to switch over to another frequency. I have everybody in the flight, their position, so that way if I need to call somebody out, I know who's in that position to call them out. Obviously we have a tripod, which everything attaches to. We got poles to boost up the antenna plate, which we got an antenna plate that has 4 small antennas on there. And that also is where our big main antenna connects to. And that antenna plate just helps increase the plane for the radio frequency. We also have multiple timers because you always want to have a backup just in case. We have 2 radios, again, just in case one goes wrong. And then we have just the hookups for your headset, for that extra batteries for the radio.
There's a lot. That's about the best way to describe it. It's not the same for every event.
Well, sometimes some people decide to start early, or they extend their music a little too long, and we have often us ground controllers have to say, you might want to delay, they're extending, or sometimes they don't start on time. There's a lot of things that can go on that cause quite a bit of a fuss, I would say.
And then we learned shortly thereafter that it was really nice to have a ground controller, as what we like to call lead ground controller, in the lead aircraft, working a separate timing and helping the flight lead with timing and the avionics setup as well. And so we have now always assigned a ground controller to fly with the flight lead and help with orchestration of coordination with the ground and mainly timing.
It's basically to be a secondary voice in the back seat to make sure that the lead pilot has everything they need to be successful.
Okay, 10 seconds to national anthem start. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. Okay, 10 seconds to national anthem start.
Typically, we're listening for the controllers on the ground, and I help the flight leader by telling him his ground speed and calculating, okay, you need to push it up or slow it down. And typically with the time there is on our scopes, it tells us like a time of ETE or ETA, and it tells us how we try to match the time with our clocks that we have with the ground controller below.
Yes, so it's just a standard timer, but this one has 3 different times you can keep track of, which works out great for us. Because the first one is set to the initial TOT, the second one is set to the national anthem, and the third one is set to the second flyover. And what's so special about having the national anthem on there is that once the national anthem starts, nothing else matters. And we can use that time to give the guys the most precise timing they can get to be over the stadium on time.
Coming up on 45, Mark 45.
2 miles out, we got a 60-degree turn. Go out 4 miles for our start point. Why do you do a 60-degree turn? We do that because we're not jets. The jets can push the power up if they're behind by 10 or 15 seconds or 20. Let's say they start early. Oh my goodness, now we're behind. What do? We can cut the corner. We have a 60 degree, so we can cut the corner and make up the time. On the other hand, we're coming in, they start late. We can go away from the target and then eat up time. So we found out that helps us a lot to adjust our time at the last minute to make our flyover time.
Anthem is ending, coming over the target now. Good job, guys.
The Russian Air Force, the Soviet Air Force, really didn't need as many as they had ordered, so they'd fly them 500 hours, park the plane, and get a brand new one. So when the wall came down, there were a lot of 500-hour yaks sitting around at various fields in the Soviet Union, and they were sold all over the world at fairly inexpensive prices.
The Russians at that time, they didn't have any money. So they were selling these airplanes cheap, and also, but they weren't flying them much because they had no money to buy gas and fuel and maintenance and all that kind of stuff.
They put U.S. instruments in the front, so instead of meters per second, and Russian instruments, I've got U.S. instruments in the front. They rebuilt the engines, so 0 time on the engine, 500 hours in the airplane. The airplane now has about 850 hours, and the engine 500 hours less than that. The Yak's a lot easier to fly than it looks like. You know, it's a big, tall on its landing gear plane. It looks fairly challenging, but it's really a very straightforward airplane to fly.
It's not heavy in the controls, but it's not light either. And I like that because it's got a good feel to it.
With the right attitude, it takes off on its own. You set the speed correctly on landing, it will land nose up fairly gently.
You know, on takeoff and landing, good visibility.
Fully aerobatic. It's stressed to 7 positive and 4 negative Gs, and you can fly it inverted, negative Gs for about a minute, which is a limitation on the engine.
This airplane has all of the Yak 52s and actually the Yak 55s, what's called an M14P. It's a Vendenev. It's made by a Russian company, and the name of the engine is a Vendenev. And it's 360 horsepower. Burns about 15, 16 gallons an hour in regular flight. And aerobatics, do pull some hard aerobatics with it, it's probably burning more like 25 gallons an hour. But it's a radial engine. It has 9 cylinders. That means 18 spark plugs, so every year when you do the maintenance inspection on it, 18 spark plugs, they're not cheap.
Fortunately, we've got a good parts source in the United States. There's a woman who has a shop in Arizona and got all the parts, pieces, rebuild the engine, so we've got good maintenance.
I came home and told my wife, I think I'm going to build an airplane. And she said, don't you think you ought to get your pilot's license first? The plans are really good with these airplanes, and the support network out there is tremendous. You can get on the internet and have an answer to any question you have within minutes, if not sooner. And in a lot of cases, people will say, hey, I'll just run over there and show you how to do it. And so they'll run over, and there's just thousands of people building these things. So building the airplane really isn't that difficult. I tell most people that anybody can do it as long as they have some basic handyman skills. You learn how to rivet. It takes you a few hours to learn how to rivet pretty good, and then you just do it 12,000 times.
And the airplane I fly and built is the RV-8A, the Vans aircraft. And it's the A model, which means that the nose gear's up front, where it should be. The tailwheel guys may disagree with that, but I think the tricycle gear is the best model, so I fly the RV-8A.
We helped with some fiberglass work, a little bit of that. Mostly try to learn a lot about what goes on in the engine. Just riveting, pop riveting, doing stuff like that, using the deburr tool and using that, and just a lot of different little eclectic skills.
The RV-4 is like flying a Corvette. I mean, it is so responsive, so fast. It's got a lot of engine, so the thrust to weight ratio is great. That thing has so much power for a little airplane that it's incredible. It just wants to keep going up. If you point it up, the stick is so sensitive that it's just point and shoot. Wherever you put it, it's going to go. And it's responsive with the push tubes that it has in it. There's no delay, no stretch, anything on it, so it's automatically responsive no matter what you're doing to it.
For me, my wife and I have a rule. I will not fly in an airplane I build. So I went to a professional builder who built this. It's called RV-14. It's the latest model, and that's what I have. I love it. It's fully aerobatic. It'll do loops, whatever you want to do. It's got a smoke system, which we use on our events. And the other thing that I like about my aircraft is its side-by-side seats. Only got 2 seats, but my wife and I use it a lot to travel because it cruises at 190 miles an hour.
But I still wanted to scratch that itch a little bit to get out and fly formation and high performance. Spock knew a guy who was selling this airplane here, and he said, hey, I'll get in touch with him and see if he really wants to sell it. When he got in touch with him, he's a former F-15 driver, so we knew each other through the association of just being around base. And when he loaded this airplane to me, I bought it quickly. You don't get a lot of these RV-8As around, and when I did acquire it, I'm like, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, join the Bandits.
Oh, that's a trade secret. I can't tell you that. No, really, it's not that complicated. It's normal in the air show business. And we have special oil that's clear, and we got tanks of it called smoke oil, and we have tanks inside the aircraft, and we load it up. I have about a 5-gallon container, and that smoke oil we inject into the exhaust, and the exhaust vaporizes it and makes smoke, and that's how it's done. Now, a lot of people say, can you have colored smoke? Because some jets can. Well, the jets have the exhaust at the end of the airplane, and they inject their oil out the back, and they put a color in it. But ours is up front engine where the exhausts are. So if we put a dye color in there, it would dye the airplane that color. So naturally, we can't use color smoke. We just use white smoke, which just comes out of the clear oil.
and a Hawk comes straight through the front windshield.
We have procedures in case something happens to your airplane, how you pull up and out of the formation. Everybody knows what it is. So we really do practice for that to make sure that it doesn't turn into something that, some catastrophic event. We also designate one of the aircraft to be a chase in case we have any kind of issues or problem. They will go with that aircraft. We cover any type of emergency we might have. We go over all of the airports near us where you can go if something happens.
And that training has to do with going back and repeating the maneuvers over a couple times to see that everybody's kind of fresh with it. And if not, we go do it some more. So safety is our number one thing. I mean,
this is a lot of fun, but we call it serious fun. We're real serious about it.
We were doing a flyover over Dorton Arena in Raleigh, and we were coming over in a 6-ship formation, Delta formation, and we were just about over the target. We were getting ready to turn on smoke, and a Hawk comes straight through the front windshield. It blew out about 75% of my windshield. It came between my head and my son's head, and my son was with me that day. He was 3 years old at the time, and it came right between us and ended up in the baggage compartment of the aircraft. I immediately pulled out of the flight, and since we were so close to the target area, I had my finger on my smoke button, so I immediately turned on my smoke just from the flinch. And so I was trailing smoke. We were pretty close to Raleigh, Durham. I announced on the radio to Raleigh to clear their runways, I'm coming in. Really couldn't hear much because the wind was so violent in the aircraft. But we landed safely, and once we got on the ground, I could talk to the tower controllers, and they were telling me, pilot, shut down your engine, get out of your plane. And I was like, no, just tell me where to taxi. The reason they were saying that is because I was trailing smoke. They thought I was on fire. And so they were rolling the fire trucks. We landed safely. Everything turned out about as good as it could possibly turn out.
Yeah, it was an NC State flyby, and we were holding right there off of Highway 64 and the intersection of US 1. And we always coordinate with Raleigh Approach Control, so they have a squawk and they can see us and deconflict with obstacles and aircraft. And they called out traffic that didn't have a squawk. So this drone was large enough for them to get a radar pane off of. That tells you how big it was. They said, you have traffic 1 mile co-altitude. And I'm looking and I don't see it. Again, it's very small, but it's still very large at the same time. And then when I do pick it up, it goes right by me in our formation and near misses 3 of us as it goes in between us. So we filed a report with the FAA and Raleigh right there. And remember, they're not supposed to be above 400 feet, and he was at 1,000. And we almost had a near midair with the drone.
My grandmother said a long time ago, an idle mind is a devil's playground. You need to have a goal, you need to have a purpose, and you need to have a mission. So our organization does hands-on community service. It's basically Food Toys House. We build houses if you're injured in combat operations, or houses go to the family of the fallen. We're in the Guinness Book of World Records for largest toy drive. We're in the Guinness Book of World Records for largest food drive. In other words, everything we do is hands-on community service. So what happens is, in the past, we had been nominated, our organization, for the U.S. Presidential Volunteer Service Award for missions that we had done. This comes from the White House. And then we noticed some of the groups around us, especially the Bandit Flight Team, that we need to nominate these guys. We'd only known them for so long, only for so many years, and said, these guys have been giving back, doing the mission, flying for the flag as part of their motto. And not only have they flown for us, we've also put wounded warriors, Gold Star families, spouses, you name it, and have flown with this with, you know, like say ride-alongs, I guess you would say, like the police do. They've done these ride-alongs, and these guys didn't have to do this, and realize that these guys don't get paid to do this. They're using their own aircrafts, their own fuel, and they want to give back in some sort of way. And it's more than these guys just flying over. To see the look on someone's face afterwards when they've gone up with these guys, this euphoria that happens to them, and you bring someone like a fallen wife on that aircraft, or if you fly the ashes of someone's relative, that's important to them.
And not only did they get this award from the White House, but also 2 U.S. senators stepped in from North Carolina and also gave them recognition. So we are very grateful for the Bandit Flight Team that flies these flags for the flag, that flies these missions for our hero homes, for Operation Coming Home, for the fallen, and also for combat injured troops. And we will see these guys again on December 22nd when they're going to fly for a Gold Star family, a Green Beret that was killed in combat operations, and we're giving away the house to the wife and daughter. And the Bandit Flight Team not only is going to fly over, they're going to do the missing man formation with his ashes. And we want to thank you guys very much. We're eternally grateful for you guys.
Thank you very much, Andrew. We really are very honored to receive this award. It means a lot to us, and it blends right in with our motto, which is flying for the flag. That's what we do, saluting our military men and women. So we are so honored to receive this award. We did not even know we were nominated. We just got a call that we had been presented this award. And that was from you, Andrew. You nominated us and put us in. We certainly do appreciate that. It came quite unexpectedly. We look forward to flying with your group, saluting our return members, and you do such a wonderful job of donating houses. This will be house number 24. So we're looking forward to that. And like I said, we are very honored, and thank you very much.
National anthem is about to start. So for the ground controllers, you don't need to be a pilot. For obviously, if you're going to be on the flying side, you need to be a pilot and you need to have a plane, and we have requirements on the planes. It has to be a completely clear canopy over top. Generally a low wing, type of thing, not a high wing aircraft. We have certain engine requirements. And then there's the additional training, but we do have some people that were just good civilian pilots that we brought in, and we provided them the formation training and the training of the team to be able to make them formation pilots. But if you want to be a ground controller, you don't need to be a pilot. But enjoying flying is a definite bonus.
2.5 years ago, I switched over to become a commercial pilot. I quit selling circuit boards for 20 years because this is really my passion. I just love doing this stuff. If you want to do something and you have the passion to do it, you can do it.
Stay involved. And when you're involved, you'll figure out exactly what it is you're passionate about. I'm a lucky guy. I say it all the time. I get to work inside my passion. So when I go to work, we teach the young members of the Air Force how to employ the Strike Eagle, how to train the Strike Eagle, and that's a passionate job for me, and I love it. The most important thing is knowing what you want to do. No one's going to help you do something you don't want to do. When you're passionate about what it is you do and you try to be the best at what you are, then other people see that and they want to climb on board with you and they want to help you achieve those goals. So once you figure out that you know exactly what it is you want to do, everything else becomes just a goal-getting point. Small goals first, then large goals, and they may even change along the way, but hit those small goals. Build that confidence, know what you can do.
You may not have an airplane, but you can go to the airport and find somebody that does have an airplane that'll take you up and fly. Haroon, Abigail, I mean, all of our ground crew, a lot of those people don't have airplanes. And so they've come on, they've been able to find a position here in the Bandit group. We all take them under our wing, we take them up flying. Eventually, many of them will get their own airplane and we'll train them up to fly as Bandits.
The Bandits have definitely influenced my decision to be a pilot and has, I guess, refined it in a way. So I decided to take a gap year actually from high school, from that summer of 2018. I started flying in May, and then I went on a mission trip, so I had to take a 2-week break, and then I soloed right afterwards. So in general, it does, I would say, take quite a bit of maturity, but also it takes a lot of guts. I would love to be a missionary pilot. That is something that I have been laid on my heart since 2016 actually, and I didn't think again I would be a pilot. But to get there, well, I mean, I'm looking at being an airline pilot. I'm also looking at joining the Guard unit. I have looked into being a CFI, which I hope to complete again by 2022. That is something that has inspired me, but also again, the end goal to all this, the reason I want to be a pilot is so that I can be a missionary pilot.
I'm proud to be a first-generation American that was invited to work with this team. I think that this is one of the best volunteer jobs I've ever had in my life. And to be honest with you, being able to see the world in a different perspective, whether it's over an event or just flying to an event, is something that I cherish every single day. If you find a team that is local to your area, I would recommend reaching out. You could go to their websites. They should have contact information. Say that you want to volunteer, and then from there they should be able to provide you with some opportunities that you'll be able to. They need people like ground coordinators and other people who are going to be those kind of key personnel that keeps the wheels going.
You know, you think about it, you're talking about a time commitment and a financial commitment and being away from your family. So it's really something that you have to be committed to and really want to be a part of.
Always comes to mind is age in flying. How much longer can you do this? What business have you got flying formation where you're 86 years old? I claim to be, as far as I know, the oldest active formation pilot around. I can't prove that, but it may or may not be. And people don't ask the question, but there's always this unspoken question about how long can you do this? I don't really worry about it very much. I plan for the next month, the next mission, hopefully the next season. I know when it comes time to quit, hopefully I'll know that, but also I'm flying with 9 other guys who won't hesitate to tell me when it's time to quit.
The Bandits are just a great group to fly with. I really enjoy the guys that I fly with. I enjoy doing the events, and it's about much more than just flying the event. We just have a good time together.
For us, we enjoy the flying. It's a lot of fun. It's what we call serious fun because it's a very serious thing. We never take it lightly, we never take it for granted. We always keep it serious, but it's fun at the same time. Now, some of the events are super meaningful because they have so much meaning for the people on the ground. For us, when we do the flyover, it's not like business, it's like fun business, if you would, but it's always kind of the same for us. We're doing the flyover, we're conducting the mission, you know, it's like you have your game face on, we're doing our thing. But for the people on the ground, and if you've been there for the people on the ground, you'll see what a really special thing it is